There's a kid in a hospital bed in Texas right now who caught a disease that doctors, scientists, and the entire United States government agreed was gone 25 years ago. Not rare, not under control, gone, erased. In the year 2000, the US stood up and officially declared victory over this virus. Case closed, chapter finished, textbook material. So here's the question nobody's really answering. How do you uneliminate a disease? Because that's not supposed to be possible. Elimination isn't like a low crime year. It's a specific scientific status. It means the virus stopped spreading, person to person, inside the country entirely. Every single case after that was imported from somewhere else and stamped out before it could take root. For 25 years, that held. And now, in 2026, it didn't. But here's the part that made me want to make this video. This isn't really a story about a virus. It's a story about a kind of biological time bomb that most people, including a lot of parents, have never even heard of. A disease that doesn't just make you sick for 2 weeks and go away. One that can quietly erase parts of your immune system without you ever knowing. Or worse, hide inside a child's brain for years, waiting. I'm going to walk you through what's actually happening, where it started, who's dying, and the one detail near the end of this video that most reporting on this topic has completely left out. Stay with me, because if you have kids or plan to, this is the kind of thing you want to know before you need to know it. Let's start with what elimination actually meant, because most people get this wrong. When the US declared measles eliminated in 2000, it didn't mean the virus was extinct. It meant something more specific. No continuous chain of transmission lasting more than 12 months anywhere in the country. Cases still popped up occasionally. Usually someone brought it back from a trip overseas. But the outbreaks always burned out. They never caught fire. That status held for a quarter of a century. Through 2019, when a bad outbreak in New York briefly threatened it and then got contained. Through COVID, through every year in between. Then 2025 happened. An outbreak that started with 2 imported cases in Texas didn't burn out. It spread and spread. By the time the year ended, it had touched 45 states. The US logged more measles cases in 2025 than in any year since 1992. Not since 2010, not since 2005, since 1992, before a huge chunk of this video's audience was even born. And it didn't stop when the calendar flipped. By July of 2026, the country had already blown past the entire 2025 case count, with 5 months of the year still left to go. Public health officials aren't asking if the US loses its elimination status anymore. They're just waiting for the official paperwork. Here's something almost nobody puts in the headline. This isn't an isolated American failure. It's regional. It's bigger than one country's vaccine politics. In November of 2025, the Pan American Health Organization made an announcement that barely made a ripple in the news cycle. The entire region of the Americas, including the United States and Canada, lost its measles elimination status. Canada had actually gotten there first, driven by over a year of sustained transmission. The United Kingdom lost its status. Spain lost its status. This is happening across multiple wealthy developed nations with modern healthcare systems, all at roughly the same time. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If this were really just about one Texas county or one online conspiracy theory, why is it happening on 3 continents at once? We'll come back to that. But first, I want to take you to the place where this current chapter actually began, because the story there is stranger and sadder than most coverage let on. West Texas. Gaines County, population around 22,000 people, roughly a fifth of them belonging to a Mennonite community, a tight-knit religious group, many of whom speak Low German at home, and send their children to church-run schools rather than public ones. In early 2025, measles arrived here from 2 imported cases. Within weeks, it wasn't 2 cases anymore. Nearly 14% of school-aged kids in this county had already opted out of at least one required vaccine, one of the highest opt-out rates in the entire state. The virus found exactly the right conditions to do what it does best: spread through people who had no immune defense against it. And this is where the story gets genuinely eerie. As the outbreak grew, a general store in the town of Seminole was converted, almost overnight, into an informal treatment clinic. Folding tables, plastic chairs, boxes of vitamins and supplements, flown in by private plane. Feverish children coughing in the aisles where groceries used to sit. Local health food stores started handing out free cod liver oil, asthma inhalers, the kind meant for wheezing lungs, not viral infections, got repurposed as a supposed measles treatment. Vitamin A, which does have a real, narrow medical use we'll get to in a minute, flew off pharmacy shelves faster than anyone could restock it. 2 little girls died in that outbreak. Both were Mennonite, both unvaccinated. Now here's where I need to slow down, because this next part is the single most misunderstood detail in the entire outbreak. And I think it's actually the key to understanding why misinformation about measles spreads as fast as the virus itself. Vitamin A is a real, legitimate part of measles treatment. That's not a myth. Decades of research, including foundational studies from Johns Hopkins, show that when a child is already hospitalized with measles, giving them vitamin A can meaningfully cut their risk of dying by roughly half, according to public health researchers. Vitamin A does not prevent you from catching measles in the first place. It's not a substitute for the vaccine. It's not a shield. An unvaccinated child can take vitamin A every single day and still catch the virus the moment they're exposed to it. It only helps once you're already sick, by supporting your body through the infection. That distinction, helps you survive it versus stops you from getting it, is the entire difference between a supplement and a vaccine. And in the chaos of a real outbreak, with fear spreading faster than facts, that distinction quietly disappeared. Vitamin A got repackaged in some corners of the internet as a replacement for vaccination. It never was one. And this wasn't just an internet forum problem. It reached the very top of the US health system. The sitting Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., publicly credited unproven treatments, a steroid inhaler and an antibiotic, neither of which has any demonstrated effect on a virus, with healing hundreds of Mennonite children. He said this the same week he attended the funeral of one of the children who didn't survive. Okay, now I want to get into the part of this story that I think is genuinely the most important thing you'll learn today. And it's the part almost nobody explains properly. Most people think of measles as a bad rash and a fever. A miserable couple of weeks, then you're fine. For most people, that's true. But there's something happening underneath the surface that scientists only fully understood in the last decade, and it changes the entire calculation of what this virus costs a population. It's called immune amnesia, and the name is disturbingly literal. Your immune system works kind of like a filing cabinet. Every time you catch a cold, fight off a stomach bug, or get a vaccine, your body files away a memory of that pathogen, specialized cells that remember exactly how to fight it if it ever shows up again. That's the entire basis of long-term immunity. Measles doesn't just infect you. Research using a blood screening tool called VirScan showed that the virus actually hunts down and destroys those memory cells, the ones storing your immunity to everything else you've ever been exposed to, and replaces them with new cells that only remember measles. Studies in animals showed the virus doesn't just suppress the immune system temporarily. It replaces the old memory cells with new measles-specific ones. It's not weakening your defenses. It's rewriting them. Some researchers now estimate this effect could account for a genuinely staggering share of childhood deaths historically blamed on other causes, because a child who recovers from measles can spend the next 2 to 3 years catching infections their body should have already known how to fight, with no obvious link back to the measles infection they had months earlier. Think about that for a second. A disease that doesn't just make you sick once, it can quietly turn back the clock on your entire immune history, and nobody in the room would know why you kept getting sick afterward. And then there's the part of this that I genuinely think should be common knowledge, and isn't. There's a condition called SSPE, subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. It's exceedingly rare, but it is also almost always fatal. And it has one of the strangest timelines in all of infectious disease. SSPE happens when the measles virus doesn't fully clear from the body after the initial infection. Instead, it goes dormant, hiding inside brain cells, mutating slightly, evading the immune system entirely. And then, years later, usually 7 to 10 years, though doctors have documented cases as long as 27 years after the original infection, it reactivates. Slowly, silently at first. It starts subtly, a change in handwriting, a shift in personality, trouble concentrating at school. Because the first symptoms look almost psychological, some patients have been misdiagnosed with a mental health condition before anyone realizes what's actually happening. Then it progresses. Muscle jerks, seizures, a steady collapse of cognitive function, and it is essentially 100% fatal, usually within 1 to 3 years of diagnosis. The children at highest risk are the ones infected before their second birthday, precisely the age group that depends entirely on the people around them being vaccinated, because they're often too young to be fully vaccinated themselves. In February of 2026, doctors published a case in the New England Journal of Medicine about a 7-year-old boy who died from a delayed measles brain complication, more than half a decade after his original infection. A childhood illness that seemed to come and go, that came back years later and took his life. That's not a hypothetical. That's this year. So let's zoom back out. Because if immune amnesia and SSPE are real, documented risks, and they are, then the conversation around vaccine hesitancy stops being just a political disagreement. It becomes a question of what a community is quietly signing up for, sometimes without knowing it. And to be fair to the people at the center of this story, it's not as one-sided as it's often portrayed. Even inside the Mennonite community that was hit hardest, there was internal disagreement. Some residents pushed back on the vaccine injury claims circulating around them, arguing that a relatively small number of adverse reaction stories were being weighed against the full picture of what vaccines actually do. This wasn't a monolithic community that rejected modern medicine outright. It was a community caught between trust, fear, and information that wasn't always reliable. That nuance matters because the pattern repeating across Canada, the UK, and Spain isn't really about any one religious group or any one country's politics. It's about what happens anywhere. Vaccination rates dip below the threshold. A contagious virus needs to keep spreading, and measles has one of the lowest thresholds of any disease we know. It's so contagious that up to 9 out of 10 unprotected people exposed to it will catch it. It can literally still be floating in the air of a room 2 hours after the infected person has left. That's not a virus that needs a super spreader event. That's a virus that just needs an open door. So here's where this leaves us. A disease the United States triumphantly declared dead 25 years ago is back. Not because the virus changed, but because the wall we built against it developed cracks, quietly, community by community, until the whole hemisphere's defense started to give way at roughly the same time. And underneath the headlines about case counts and hospitalizations is a much stranger, much more human story. About a virus that can erase your immune memory without a trace. About a brain disease that can wait a decade to collect on an infection you'd already forgotten about. And about how easily good information and bad information can end up sitting on the same pharmacy shelf. If this is the first time you're hearing about immune amnesia, or SSPE, or what actually happened in Gaines County, you're not alone. Most coverage of this topic stops at the case numbers. I wanted to go further. If you want me to keep digging into stories like this, the science that gets buried underneath the headlines, that's exactly what this channel is for. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next one might be about the story that's unfolding right now. and you'll want to see it before everyone else does. I'll see you in the next video.